Before you decide it's over, before you send that last message, before you spiral into she doesn't care anymore, pause. Because the moment a woman starts pulling away is the moment most men destroy their own chances. Not because she's evil, not because you're not enough, but because most men react from fear. They chase the feeling of certainty. They chase reassurance. They chase control. And the harder they chase, the more they push her away. Here's the opportunity you're missing. Distance doesn't always mean the end. Sometimes it means a turning point, a test, a mirror, a moment that reveals whether you're a man ruled by emotion or a man who can stay grounded when things get unclear. Most men think strength is loud. Stoicism teaches the opposite. Strength is quiet. Strength is restraint. Strength is the ability to feel the pressure rise and still choose your next move with discipline instead of panic. Welcome back to the Stoic Path. This channel is where we take modern relationship problems and filter them through ancient Stoic strength. Not to manipulate people, not to play games, but to build a mind that doesn't beg, doesn't panic, and doesn't collapse when someone's energy changes. And before we get deep into this, do 3 things right now. Subscribe so you don't miss the next lesson. Like this video because it tells the algorithm this message matters. And share it, plus leave a comment because your engagement doesn't just help the channel grow. It pushes these ideas to someone who's drowning in the same situation you once did. That's bigger than content. That's impact. Now breathe and lock in. Because if you apply what you're about to learn, you'll be in a position most men never reach. A position where your self-respect stays intact no matter what she does. Let's get into it. 1. Understand what pulling away actually means. Most men hear distance and translate it into doom. They assume she found someone else. They assume she's done. They assume they've already lost. But Stoicism teaches you to separate story from reality. Reality is simple. Her energy changed. Her responsiveness changed. Her availability changed. That's all you know. Everything else is interpretation. And interpretation is where men sabotage themselves. When you interpret distance as rejection, you start acting rejected. You start moving like a man who is losing. You start chasing like a man who believes his value is slipping away. And the tragedy is that reaction often creates the very outcome you feared. A woman can pull away for many reasons. She can be overwhelmed by life. She can be uncertain about her feelings. She can be stressed, distracted, or emotionally overloaded. She can be losing interest slowly. She can also be testing the dynamic without even realizing she's doing it. The Stoic move is not to guess. The Stoic move is to observe. Your job is not to force closeness. Your job is to see clearly, calmly, without fantasy, and without panic. 2. Why distance hits men so hard. Let's be honest. What hurts isn't just her silence. What hurts is what her silence does to your identity. When she was warm, you felt chosen. When she replied quickly, you felt valued. When she was consistent, you felt safe. So, when she pulls back, it doesn't feel like she's busy. It feels like your worth is being questioned. That's why men over-ext. That's why men double-call. That's why men send paragraphs trying to explain themselves. They aren't communicating, they're trying to rescue their self-esteem. Stoicism exposes this clearly. You're placing your inner peace in the hands of something outside your control, and anything you don't control can be taken from you at any time. So the goal isn't to become cold. The goal is to become stable, to feel the discomfort without letting it command you, to notice the fear without obeying it, to face uncertainty like a man who can stand alone, because the man who can stand alone is the man who cannot be emotionally controlled. 3. Why chasing always makes it worse. When she pulls away, your instinct might be to do more attention, more reassurance, more effort, more availability, more explanations. But attraction doesn't grow from pressure. It grows from respect. And respect doesn't grow when you abandon your own life to prove you care. Chasing communicates one message louder than any words. My peace depends on you. Even if she likes you, even if she cares, that message creates an imbalance. Now she becomes the center, and you become the satellite. Now she can drift, and you will orbit harder. And when that dynamic forms, your value drops, not because you're worthless, but because you're signaling that you don't value your own time. A Stoic doesn't chase what runs. A Stoic stands firm because his worth is not negotiated through texting frequency. If you feel the urge to chase, that urge is a signal. It's your ego begging for certainty, and your job is to master that urge, not follow it. 4. The silent test. Most men fail without realizing. Here's the part nobody wants to admit. Sometimes distance is a test. Not always an intentional test, not always a conscious plan, but a natural emotional checking of reality. She steps back and she watches what happens next. She's observing whether you're stable or fragile, grounded or needy, confident or desperate. She's sensing whether you have a life or whether your life is her. And most men fail because they treat uncertainty like an emergency. They flood her with attention. They ask, "Are we okay?" They demand reassurance. They try to force emotional clarity before it's even available. But the Stoic response is calm, measured, patient. You don't punish her. You don't pretend you don't care. You don't send cold messages to win. You simply refuse to abandon your dignity. And that's when you separate yourself from the crowd. Most men react. You respond. Most men chase. You hold your ground. 5. The Stoic law of distance. There's a truth that feels uncomfortable at first, but it's real. When something is always available, it becomes background noise. When something disappears, the mind starts paying attention. This is not playing hard to get. This is not manipulation. This is simply what happens when you stop overspending your attention. If she pulls back, you don't chase to close the gap. You allow the gap to exist. You keep your focus. You keep your routine. You keep your standards. And when you do that, something shifts. She begins to experience you differently. Not as a man who is always waiting, always available, always emotionally on call, but as a man who has gravity. A man who doesn't fall apart when things get uncertain. Distance creates space for truth. It reveals whether she valued you or whether she valued the attention you provided. And either way, you win, because you finally see clearly. 6. What to do instead of chasing. This is the practical Stoic response when she's distant. You match energy without bitterness. You don't punish. You don't become rude. You don't act cold. You simply stop over-investing. You stop initiating multiple times in a row. You stop trying to fix the mood with long explanations. You stop monitoring her social media like it's a heartbeat monitor for your confidence. You stop negotiating with silence. And you return to your own life. You train. You work. You build. You sleep. You spend time with friends. You move forward not as a performance, as a principle. Because whether she comes back or not, you do not allow a shifting mood to derail your direction. You don't abandon your mission because someone's energy changed. You don't pause your growth because someone is inconsistent. This is what makes a man dangerous in a peaceful way. He cannot be paused. 7. When silence becomes the strongest message. Most men are terrified of silence because silence forces them to face the truth. They can't control the outcome. But silence used with integrity is power, not as a tactic, as a statement of self-respect. At first, she may not notice. She may assume you'll return to chasing. She may expect you to check in. She may expect you to break first, and then time passes. And that's when the mind does what it always does. It starts asking questions. Why isn't he reacting? Why is he calm? Did he lose interest? Did I misjudge him? Silence creates space for reality to speak. It creates contrast. It creates consequence. It removes the safety net most men provide. And when you remove that safety net, you also remove the entitlement that sometimes forms when someone is used to you always being there. 8. The moment she starts watching you again. Pierce stage many men never reach because they panic too early. When you don't chase, she begins to notice your absence, and curiosity appears. Not because she's a villain, because humans are wired to notice what changes. She may check your activity. She may revisit old messages. She may look for signs of your mood. She may even accidentally pop up in your space. Sometimes she will test the waters with something small, a random, "Hey," a reaction to your story, a meaningless question, a comment that seems casual but isn't. It's not always a full return. Often it's a temperature check. She's asking, do I still have access to him whenever I want? And if you respond like a starving man who finally got food, you give her the answer she wanted. Yes, she still has you. The Stoic doesn't move like that. He responds like a man with a full life, a full mind, and full control. 9. How to respond when she reaches out. This is the critical moment. If she disappeared for a week and returns with a casual, "Hey," most men explode with relief and overcompensate. They flood her with attention. They schedule instantly. They act like she just did them a favor by remembering they exist. That kills the progress. The Stoic response is simple, calm, warm, and unhurried. You reply like a man with a life. You don't interrogate her. You don't punish her. You don't pretend you don't care. But you also don't hand her immediate full access to your time and energy. You make it natural. You make it normal. You make it steady. And then you watch her consistency, not her words, not her promises, her consistency. Because if she wants your presence again, she earns it through effort and respect, not through a lazy message that resets the dynamic. Stoicism is not pride, it's standards. 10. If she never comes back, you still win. This is the part that frees you. If you apply everything you're learning and she never returns, it doesn't mean you failed. It means the truth arrived sooner. You don't want a relationship that survives only because you chase. You don't want love that requires you to abandon your dignity. You don't want connection built on anxiety. A Stoic accepts what is not with bitterness, with strength. If she leaves, let her go cleanly. No dramatic speeches, no begging, no revenge posts, no last message trying to sound strong while secretly hoping it changes her mind. Just a quiet decision. I will not chase what does not choose me. And then you build, you improve, you become more disciplined, more grounded, more self-respecting than you were before. Because the purpose of dating is not to keep someone at all costs. The purpose is to find alignment without losing yourself. 11. The mindset shift that changes everything. Here is the real shift. You stop trying to keep her, and you start asking a better question. Does this situation align with the man I'm becoming? Because the Stoic man doesn't measure his worth by whether someone stays. He measures his worth by whether he stays true to his values. He can love deeply without losing himself. He can desire without clinging. He can face uncertainty without panic. He understands the dichotomy of control. He focuses on what he can control: his actions, his standards, his patience, his composure, his direction. And he releases what he cannot control: her mood, her timeline, her choices. That mindset makes you rare, not because you're playing a role, but because you've built inner stability. 12. Your next move starting today. If you're in that moment right now, she's pulling away and you're tempted to chase, do this. Take 24 hours of silence, not as a trick, as a reset. Use that time to return to your body. Train, walk, journal, work, sleep properly, drink water, clean your space. Finish something you've been delaying. Do one hard thing you've been avoiding. Prove to yourself that your life continues with or without her validation. Then, if she reaches out, respond calmly. If she doesn't, move forward with dignity. Because the real victory isn't getting her back. The real victory is becoming a man who does not lose himself when things get uncertain. That is the Stoic path. And if this message hit you, comment this: I choose self-respect not to impress anyone, but to mark a line in the sand for yourself. Thank you for watching and walking with me on the Stoic path today. Before you go, double-check that you're subscribed, because the next lesson builds directly on this one. But don't just watch this and feel motivated for 10 minutes. Close the app and implement one thing, one boundary, one pause, one moment of composure where the old you would have chased. That's how change becomes real. Like, share, and comment so more people find this, and so you're doing your part in the change you want to see. I'll see you in the next one.